Well, yo, bro. Hey, welcome back to another episode of YoBroHeySis. How are you doing today, bro?
Oh, I'm doing great, sis. It's pretty awesome. It's a Friday night here, and there's this big hurricane thing going on in the eastern part of the U.S. right now. So there's a little bit of excitement going on there, but otherwise the week has gone good, and I'm sure happy to be talking with you. Although I heard rumors that you were going to call me a nerd tonight. Is there any truth to that rumor?
Oh, yes. Oh, most definitely. And wear that with pride. Yes, I want to talk about two techs tonight.
Yeah, let's hear it.
You're a bit of a techie kind of fellow, are you not? I mean, you kind of live by the techness, and you're like this total tech guy because, that's your everyday thing, is it not?
Yeah, and you know what it was? I hate to bring it up because you were going to bring it up, but I really was a nerd when I was younger, and tech was the thing for me even as a young man, and so it's very much still the case today. But like something's changed with the word. I mean, it used to be a really bad word, and now
I know you got to wear that. You got to wear that title with pride now, man. I mean, it's great because back when we were growing up, when you got called a nerd, it was almost an insult. Well, it was an insult. It wasn't almost an insult. It was an insult. And now you get called a nerd and you're like, yeah, I know. And I really think it has to do with technology. What do you think? I mean, it's like that flip from when we grew up, we didn't have the technology that we do now. It wasn't the mainstay or the main part of how we did things. So, the nerds that were there, were looked and frowned upon because that wasn't the normal. But now, if you look at it, it's like, okay, everything's technology, and if you're not a tech person and you're not a nerd, you're almost not the norm because nerds are almost the norm now. So I think that's pretty interesting. But I want to talk about two specific techs tonight. Is that okay with you?
Okay, let's hear about it.
All right, well, I was referencing you and you being a tech kind of fella. Well, I've mentioned him before, and we've really kind of promoted this fella. We've promoted King Bullet quite a few times on our show. He has agreed to kind of help with us now that we're getting our faces out there and make ourselves known in the YouTube world and so forth about our talk. He's decided to kind of help us make things look a little bit better and go a little bit smoother, which I think is wonderful. The funny part about it is the fact that, you put two techs in a room, it's not a pretty sight.
You mean there's a little bit of drama there? There's a little bit of drama going on?
And you know what? And every tech in the world will probably tell you that they're anything but dramatic. They're all fact-based, to the point, get it done. But no, they're like watching a soap opera. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's very amusing, actually. It's super amusing, actually. And I was taking quite pride and joy in this because knowing that you're a bit of a tech guy and you have a creative side to you, and bringing in King Bullet, who is also a tech guy with a creative background and kind of really growing his channel and things, there's going to be a bit of clash because maybe you possibly might both be very stubborn. As King Bullet is instructing me of the way I should speak, and I said, sure, I'll just keep talking on the phone, he's telling me that, like, okay, I need to get this, and we got to work on this, and we got to get on, for this, and I'm taking there's 30 different levels of line that we take for the sign, and it can enhance this, enhance that to make this sound and stuff like that, and I need bro to give me the information that I request the way I requested it, and not in the pieces that he's giving it to me. It's great that he wants to try to help me, but he's, ruining the whole creative side and blah, 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 blah. And as the non-tech person in this relationship, to say the least, I'm actually laughing my butt off. I'm taking great enjoyment in listening to the fact that two very strong-willed, brilliant men trying to work together. And he's like saying, okay, well, you need to get bro to do this, this, and this. I'm like, okay, go ahead. I'm just talking on the phone. That's all I want to do. I'm just talking on the phone. And I'm,
That's right.
That's my job. And he's like, and we need to get this and this and, have you do it this way and go this way. I'm like, okay, I just want to talk on the phone. You figure out that tech stuff. You deal with bro with that whole techie, lines of sound stringy thingy-mahoggies that get put where to that and this, and have a good time with that. I'm just going to talk to the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was great enjoyment. I was talking, one of my consumers who was very worried that she doesn't want to follow the social norm and, get up, get a job, pay your bills kind of thing. She kind of wants to explore what her avenues are. And she was working on a YouTube channel. And I just so happened to mention that, I got a YouTube channel too. And that I'm working to get that out there. And I told the tech story, and she thought it was fabulous because she, in reference of nobody in specific name frames, but in telling the story of how, having two very strong-willed tech people try to develop a specific thing can be an interesting, fun thing. And all I want to do is talk on the phone. And I literally brought the girl to tears. She was like, that makes so much sense. And it's true. I mean, I think that tech people are just as moody in their creativity as a, say, Picasso or an artist type person like that. I have a vision of how this is supposed to be performed with these zeros and ones, and you have to follow this vision, and if you don't see this vision, then I'm going to get grumpy. And I think it's actually very hilarious, to tell you the truth, because I take great enjoyment watching the two techs go at it. I seriously, I literally giggled over it all week whenever I was getting the runoff of like everything trying to get, worked over and discussed and dealt with in the tech section of our show. And, I know that's an important part because if we don't have that, we don't have a show. Because I know we've had a couple of talks about the fascination of how we can do this in the first place. But it's just the fact of the matter that, I'm just here to sit here and chat. But, yeah, you go ahead and do the tech things, you guys, and make it fabulous like I know you will. And, I'll sit back and laugh when the two of you butt heads.
Well, it's funny. I think we nerds, we tech people, over the past, generation or so, I think we did a sell job with the rest of society because I think we sort of sold ourselves as being like Spock from Star Trek, these calm, detached, unemotional beings who just handle the tech. And, it was really funny to find out that, when I was younger, I thought, well, Spock was a hero. And I wanted to be like him, I wanted to be dispassionate. I wanted to be emotionless. I wanted to just be this logical, calculating machine-like, mind. And what ended up happening, of course, was I found out at some point that if you want drama, boy, go to work with somebody who thinks they're Spock, because anytime anything would come up that would stir up those underlying passions and those underlying emotions, boy, that would irritate me. It would annoy me, because I'm supposed to be this emotionless, logical being, and I'm not, and it's just insane. And I think the whole tech industry is filled with people who are like that. So, you know, it really is crazy. You get two tech people in a room talking, and boy, the drama just can fly right to the front of things.
The passion ensues. The soap opera begins. This week on Techies of Today, these are the days of our tech. It's serious. It's very comical. And yeah, you are right. It is that sell that when someone thinks that you are technological and very intelligent in that area and stuff, but you are very emotionalist. But if you remember, in the later movies of Star Trek with Spock, and I do mean the original Spock, he was quite emotional. He was a very, very emotional man with loads of emotion that he thought he was supposed to hide, and did it not very well, because he always had that layer of underground. I mean, if we really wanted to sit and diagnose, you know, Spock and things,
right,
we could probably say, trying to do an emotional detachment kind of thing. I mean, seriously, you would probably have some emotional detachment going on. Definitely had some daddy issues. There's some deep-seated stuff going on. Not saying that Captain Kirk didn't have his own diagnosis going on too, and the sane one out of them all was considered the flighty one, and the doc was like, I'm a doctor, not a physicist, Jim, so.
Right.
And he was probably the sanest of them all. Because he at least expressed his emotions correctly and put both logic and emotion to it to give a different type of perception.
Well, let me ask you this. If Spock was your client and you had to sit him down and sort of help him through all of those issues that we saw his character have to go through in all of the TV episodes and in all of the movies and stuff, how would you talk to him? Would you try to sort of meet him at his level, sort of like adopt his approach that he's, this passionate, emotionless being and sort of interface with him as a computer, or would you try to sort of chip away at that and just say, Spock, embrace this other part of you that you have such a hard time embracing? Or would it be like something in the middle? How would you talk to somebody like that?
It would definitely be something in the middle. And I liked how you said interface, which in the first place was quite interesting, because, you're pretty much talking tech there. As, if I was, he was sitting in my chair, I wouldn't be going, so how can I interface with you? Those words wouldn't be a particular language.
Let me practice this. Let's do a practice session. I am the tech robot. Let us talk about my issues.
Well, let us interface.
Let us interface. Unknown protocol. Danger.
Right.
Alert.
I think that's the wrong TV movie. I think that's the wrong movie.
Oh, sorry.
Danger, Will Robinson. But seriously, that's and it just shows you how much in the tech world I have to live in that I would know all of these much-known nerd movies. I mean, seriously, if it's funny because I can actually have a couple of clients who are very computer savvy. And sometimes when you are talking with intellectual people, they speak intellectually. And they're not using the word sup very often. That's not something in their vocabulary. They're using so. If we are interlacing the thoughts of the way we can quantify our talk, how would you say we're doing today? They're not going to go, stop. So the one client was actually quite impressed because at one particular point, he's talking this way, and I throw stuff right back at him. And he was all like, but you understood what I said. I said, grew up with it and then raised it. I didn't have much choice but understand it if I wanted to communicate. He was really taken back the fact that so now he actually can open up and give me stimulating conversation that he finds stimulating, discussing little pieces, and I slowly have been working to make him talk in a sense that, regular people can understand it. I go, but how would you explain that differently? So say I don't know what that means. What other word can you use for that? Because I'm not, I've heard it, but I'm not exactly sure. And I don't want to misplace it in the wrong use. And, all of a sudden now, and he finally caught up on it, and he says, that was slick.
Well, what do you think? What do you think is behind that sort of, when people consciously try to adopt that Spock type persona? Do you think it's like a defense mechanism, like it's trying to define themselves in an identity so they can limit what they have to deal with in life, or do you think there's something else there? Or?
No, I really do, even if we're thinking of in Spock in itself, it was a complete defense mechanism to try to protect himself for the vulnerabilities that he truly felt he had. And so to hide those vulnerabilities, he would become unemotional, and he would become very computer-like as much as he could to portray and protect himself because, any time he felt that he ever used any kind of emotion that was positive, that, it was bad. And so to not feel bad and have that pain, he protected himself and hid himself by making him think he didn't have emotions to express. And, as you watch the progression of the movie, we found out otherwise. He had a lot of deep-seated anger, actually.
Right. I think that's a really good thing that applied in my own life. I went through a Spock-like period, and I think I think it was exactly like that. I feel like it was, I felt like I was overwhelmed by everything that was overtaking me in life, and sort of adopting this logical robot persona was really about trying to, how would you put it, trying to keep all the complexities from just overwhelming and just, turning me into having a breakdown maybe. I don't know.
And also too that in thinking of it, do you believe that maybe it could have been a defense mechanism to hide that, I've expressed myself in other ways and other emotions, and it came back to bite on me. And so if I play this and protect myself and not show emotion, then they can't play on that vulnerability of me.
Gotcha. I think that's a fair way to put it. I know for me it was a big deal in puberty. When I started to come of age, where women stopped being icky and started being something other than that, and I had no way to control that. And I think as a sort of a person who has a perfectionist kind of personality, I was really bothered by these strong emotions that just wouldn't fit into my nice, neat categories of life and stuff.
Yeah. See, there you go. You put yourself on the couch and gone and healed yourself on the couch all by yourself. Look at that. That's called coping skills. And that's called, first thing in trying to improve a behavior is identifying it. Today in group we were talking about conflict, and I broke up, because we had quite a large group today, I broke them up into smaller sections, and I had everybody write down the word conflict on a piece of paper and then tape it on a wall, and then another paper they had to put resolution. And one of the things that, came prevalent is that they realized that to deal with a conflict, whether it's the conflict of internally with emotions and things like that, or externally with someone else, that you had to identify what the conflict was. And
right.
to identify it, and if you don't identify it, then how can you change that behavior? Because you don't see it, then there's nothing that needs to be changed. But things are going wrong, and everything's going wrong, and why is things going wrong? But and they don't understand why is everything going wrong, because of the not identifying what's going on, and that's huge. And right. That's a huge first step, because actually that's probably the hardest, because you can have outside sources, whether they're positive supports or negative supports, shoving down your throat identifying what that conflict is. And because most people put up a defense mechanism, they're going to fight what that conflict is. And they're going to fight understanding and admitting and identifying, oh, that's the conflict. That's what's causing the behavior. Now what do I do with it? Because it's easier to deny that it's not there at all. Things don't get better and things stay crappy, but it's easier to deal emotionally, not to have to deal with that. And
right.
So that's a huge thing. And that's an important piece in just trying to cope with life. And, a lot of people will do that. They will hide behind whatever it is that they're using as a defense mechanism, whether it's a healthy thing or not, and avoid trying to identify that conflict.
Right. Now, how much of this has to be initiated by a willingness on the part of the Spock character to, I don't want to say grow up, but I don't want to say move out of it, but I still want it to be mature.
Well, the thing is it does have something to do with maturity, but not completely. You don't have to be an older person to identify it. You don't have to be a younger person to identify it. So you don't have to be emotionally mature or unmature, depending on, wording is not working for me. But immature, there we go. See? I knew it would come out eventually. But the thing is that the important part is that you are going to fight what you kind of already know, but protecting yourself from it. And it's good to have positive support to kind of bring that to the light, and not to push it, not to jam it down the person's throat, and not to throw blame and say, look, see, this is why you're doing this. You got to quit doing this because of this. Because it's not going to make that person change, and it's not going to make them identify that they need to change that behavior because of the conflict that they're having with themselves. So it has to be more or less, it's a team effort. It has to be the willingness of the person to want to admit, and the positive support to be there to help identify it in a positive way and not in a negative way where they will just jump back to that defense mechanism that they know and close back off and become unemotional. So.
Right. Now, I've noticed this mostly in my own experience, and I've noticed it mostly in men. We talk about the Spock figure, the Spock character, but that's only half of the people. What do you think this is also something that happens a lot with young ladies and women as well too, or is it to the different degree, or do they have different issues there and not so much this?
I did have to do a paper one time on like the dominance of men and where they were brought up. And when I was doing some research, I found a paper that I thought was quite interesting. Didn't use it too much, but I thought it was an interesting little piece of tidbit to know was that culturally, how men have been raised really kind of determines that Spock-like attitude, or that domineering attitude, or that I gotta bring home the bacon kind of attitude. And, and then the culture has the mother's the nurturing one who takes care of. Yes, that nature versus nurture thing will always come into play because nature has women that have that, emotional set for, raising and protecting their children and being more emotional, where men are, more detached from that particular emotion. But the thing is that it has been enhanced and has been drilled in to boys from a young age that you have to be a man, you can't cry. To be a man, you have to tough it up. To be a man, you gotta, knock it off and just deal with it and move on. And the thing is that that's not always going to be true. Because a man's going to have just as much emotion as a woman does. And if they don't learn at appropriate ages, or if they never learn, period, how the proper way to express those emotions, then they can become more violent, more acting out more, and, finding, ways to deal with this pent-up emotions that they weren't allowed to deal with in the first place because they had to pretty much close down and not show any vulnerability. And I thought that was really interesting that, it's a huge American culture, and it's been becoming a little less, but it's still a big piece of culture in almost all cultures, that this is how it is done. And so that when men do show signs of emotion, of, being sad, being loving and, very gentle-like or whatever, then they aren't deemed as manly. They're not deemed as being able to, well, then they're not a real man because they don't do this, and they're expressing this. Real men just suck it up and take it, and that's just how it works. You brush it off and you move on. And so, then men learn how to hide it.
That's a good impersonation, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I can really, I'm here all week, people. I can impersonate whatever. But yeah, so, but that's true. And so then, when men need to express those emotions, they can't. And so they have to hide it. And, let me reference the later movies of Spock. How did he deal with not ever having those emotions? What did he end up doing? He ended up being pretty doggone angry, didn't he?
Yeah, it all came out and it all came out in ways that he was trying to hold back all this pent up stuff, and it ended up just spilling out of everywhere.
Right. So, that's an important piece that I have no idea of whether or not, because, I wasn't born when they wrote these scripts. I was just old enough to get to see them on reruns. But it makes me wonder, did whoever wrote this, and I'm sure it was a fella, because it wasn't a very woman-dominated world at that time, was kind of really very advanced for his thought.
Right.
Well, I guess the later ones I was old enough to be around when they wrote it. So there was a chance for maybe having a woman writer on there. But still, it was these writers kind of had some hindsight in the attitudes of, this is what happens if you pent this stuff up. It was very, very insightful and it's very hidden, because unless you sit here and psychoanalyze the movie, you would never have sat and thought, oh, well, yeah, this is why Spock is acting this way. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. And now this coming back to the two texts, it's kind of interesting because it almost turns it upside down. So instead of being dispassionate and sort of arguing from this better, logical, reasonable way, it almost can turn things into, like you say, that soap opera. And so it's like we're almost the exact opposite of what we declared ourselves to be.
Thank you so much for being a follower. Feel free to like us and follow us on our channel. This is a really great idea to just pop out, and it's wonderful that we kind of just come together, and we thank you for listening to us.